So when I think about esports and when I think about specifically like UK players in esports, it's quite rare to see them at the top level. And then you drill that down into like Scottish players.
It's a really small pool, isn't it?
Yes, I can think of like a couple in Call of Duty, like Marky B, who's now even a coach. He's not even a player anymore. So I didn't follow like League of Legends in the early days by any means. So when I eventually like came across yourself and found out who you were, I was like, oh shit, it is possible. Like we can just make it, because typically like British folk in esports, if they're working on the competition side, it's typically as they're either behind the scenes supportive staff or they're broadcast talent. We actually seem to kind of dominate in that area, I guess, depending on the game. But we're very well equipped in that sense, but not necessarily in the actual competing side itself. And I do wonder, how the hell do you go from Scotland to like competing and like was it third at Worlds you achieved?
Third at Worlds, yeah.
Yeah,
2012.
Like I just wonder, just briefly, about like the transition from that, because it is so rare. I kind of be remiss to not bring it up a bit.
Yeah, I mean, I think you're totally right. The function of the UK, it was a console dominant market. Like, not many people played PC. When I was 6 years old, I was very obsessed with computers. My dad was like big into computers, and for my sixth Christmas, I wanted a graphics card for Christmas, because I wanted to have my own rig that could play like high quality games.
Mm-hmm.
So I was super switched on to PC games from a very early age. And quite frankly, I think the influence of my dad and his tech side, he was playing games like, rather than going out like to a bar on a Friday night, he would play Medal of Honor with his buddies or Quake with his buddies on a Friday night.
Mm-hmm.
So I was exposed to that. And I started playing with them. I got, and they would let me play, but then it got to a point, like say after like a year, I got so good that his buddies thought I was cheating,
right,
and said you can no longer play in the guys' Friday night games. And that just kind of started my journey. Honestly, I was hooked on video games. I was a smart like kid, but I didn't apply myself at school.
Mm-hmm.
I would much rather be gaming until the early hours. You know, I was playing MMOs online, and we would be playing with the Americans, and everyone would go to sleep, and they would turn the router off because they knew I was so addicted and hooked to games. They would turn the Wi-Fi router off, and I'd go upstairs because the router was in my mom and dad's bedroom, and I would crawl along the floor like commando style, so quiet at like 1 or 2 in the morning, and I would touch on the router, and it's only a bedroom. It's not that big, but it would take me like 25 minutes to crawl back across so I could get the router on, get downstairs, and then start gaming again. Yeah, I think I was just obsessed, unhealthily obsessed with games and being the best. It didn't matter which game I was playing, whether it was EVE Online, whether it was WoW, whether it was Aeon. It was a bunch of Korean MMOs I got into. All the FPS like shooters I got really hooked on. TFC was a big game for me. I was just really hooked on being the best at whatever game that I was playing. And my world was really small. I was a small town kid in Scotland. I mean, I was from a lower income like family. My online world was way more exciting than what was going on around me in real life. Mm-hmm. And I was just fascinated by that, and quite frankly, yeah, obsessed with that idea. I got bullied at school, so I wasn't like the most social kid, and my world was just way more exciting online.
And at that point, well, I guess at the point maybe where you were getting really good at League of Legends, and there was the possibility of like teaming up and stuff. Esports was not as big and kind of validified as such as it is now. I mean, it is still quite small now, but also it is big in some aspects, right? So I don't know how much of a like viable career option that seemed, but also on the flip side, it seemed like you kind of had your sights set on what you wanted to do from a very early age, if possible.
Yeah, I was totally very competitive. I mean, I was making thousands of dollars off games when I was like in my early teens. Mm-hmm. Like when I was like 13, 14, I was buying and selling accounts in EVE Online. I was making money, like all sorts of stuff on that side. But when I was getting older, I was going to uni, and a buddy convinced me to try League of Legends. I was going to uni for computer science, and I tried League of Legends, and I actually hated it. I'd never played a MOBA before, or any, like, I didn't play StarCraft or Dota or anything like that. Hated League of Legends. Just quit because it was too hard. And then 3 months later, I came back, and I started playing it with a group of friends, and I had a lot of fun, and that got me over that steep learning curve. I think League has a pretty steep learning curve, and then I just got better and better, and I got better than my friends and couldn't play with them anymore. And then I became, over the period of like 6 months, one of the best players in Europe, and I was on the ladders competing at that point. And yeah, I can't explain it. When you give a competitor that feel and that feedback loop of like being the best and up there, and you're constantly playing against the best players, it's a drug. It's just a complete drug. And I was so into being the best in my role. So as a jungler, so I just wanted to be the best jungler in Europe. And yeah, the transition was terrible. I mean, when I actually got picked up by a team, I was making no money a month. It was SK Gaming way back in the day, and like I was getting paid nothing. They were just like, "Hey, we'll fly you to the event."
Yeah.
And my schedule started to get so busy with all these little tournaments. Like back in the day, it was like Go for Lols and all these like $100 a month tournaments. And I got super into this that I started forgetting about uni and just like dropped the ball off uni, much to my parents' dismay.
Yeah.
But I was so passionate about this thing. I got to go to Germany. I got to compete at Gamescom and see the stage and the fans. And I was just fucking great. Like, I want to do this. And I actually, there's a big catalyst in my life, which made me really go all in on pro competition. Was my dad was fighting cancer for like 2 years, and he passed when I was 19. There's a deeper story to that, but he passed, and it was like a fire inside me to go make the most of my life and do what I was passionate about. Like, life's too short, like just fucking go for it.
Yeah.
And I never looked back. That's when I, was so switched on becoming one of the best players in the world and threw myself headfirst into that. And what a wild ride. I mean, I competed in over 40 countries around the world. I lived in China. I lived in Korea. I lived in Germany. I lived in the US. And this small town kid, I just got to go see the world and meet so many interesting people and compete on some of the biggest stages. Incredible opportunity.
So you didn't end up completing university?
No, I bailed on that. Which was I was the first in my family to go to university, and
supposed to drop out.
I like bailed. My dad passed, so I feel as far as my poor mom. My dad passed, and then I basically said, "Oh, I'm gonna drop out of uni and I'm gonna move to South Korea, and I'm gonna make no money." And my mom's just like left there holding the bag, like, "What?
Yeah,
is going on?"
It's not a very compelling case either to make her feel okay with that.
No, but that's what I did.
And how long were you like competing for professionally?
About 4.5 years. So late 2010 to 2016. And late 2015.
So when you decided to hang up the mouse and keyboard as such, I never know the right phrase to use there, so I'll use that.
That's what I say. Yeah. Or I retired or whatever it is. Retire,
yeah. And you didn't finish university, so you didn't necessarily have the degree to fall back on, right? What was the stages there? Was it just like, shit, what the hell do I do now? Because what happens with a lot of like pro players is they just fall back on the content creation. They've got the pre-established audience from their years of competing. Some of them do well in branding, some don't. I'd suggest most don't. Realistically, it's just like an afterthought, and it's just like, oh, here we go, I'll get some subscriptions and stuff, people will miss me and this will be fine. So like, did you have like any sort of game plan, or was it just kind of like, okay, I need to figure out something to do now? Because
I didn't have a game plan in terms of exactly what I wanted to do, but I was extremely conscious of the opportunity that I was given as a pro. I mean, I was meeting incredibly phenomenal people that were very successful, and I wanted to soak in everything. So over the course of that like 4.5 years, I was like a sponge. I wanted to learn. I wanted to become a better version of myself, and use as much of that opportunity as I could get. So was very aware of what it meant to have good relationships. I was very aware of what it meant to seize opportunity and like take advantage of the fact that I had all this exposure. And I was very aware of like how important it is to build a brand, and have a reputation and what that means. So I was extremely conscious of that. Even throughout my playing career, I was negotiating not just my own contract with the teams, I was negotiating my entire team's contract with the teams. So I remember like negotiating. So Steve Arhansen at Liquid, he was at Curse at the time. I was negotiating off the back of a world championship, negotiating with him on behalf of my entire team in a hotel. I remember negotiating against Alex Garfield, who owned EG at the time. I was giving him a presentation in a hotel room about why he should pay me more money and like all this stuff. So I was very aware of the business and the opportunity that I was given. And I think that awareness to some extent pissed off my team, honestly, like, because I wanted to negotiate the deal and get the best deal for us and the best deal for me, and at the same time. And that was a bit of a distraction from being a true leader, especially in a team game. So there was definitely a little tension there when we were competing, but it helped me so much to parlay into what I was going to do next. And there's so many different avenues and ventures. It's easy when you look at like your career and you go, oh, this worked. There were so many things I tried that just didn't work, that had just never been talked about.
And that makes you very much an anomaly then in like the playing world. I'm pretty sure. And I mean, I don't necessarily know the intricacies of how players handle themselves, and I guess it depends upon the player. You can't really generalize in that sense, but I'm not aware of too many that are negotiating their own deals and such. And you're starting to see more agents come into it. Some are running an agency and are lawyers at the same time. And I mean, I don't really agree with that too much, I'll be honest with you. But then you've got like, you've got like Jerome at Prodigy and stuff like he's doing some good work right now across mainly CSGO and Valorant. And really allowing players to focus on themselves while he negotiates and does all the nitty gritty work, which I think is great. But obviously you took that upon yourself, and that makes you a very special case in esports, from what I know at least.
Well, quite frankly, there was no financial incentive, right, for agents to be in the space. The money wasn't big enough. Yeah, there was no financial incentives for the managers or agents to be there because they're just not making enough money. Now there's big deals and a lot of money going through the hands of esports pros. So there's an incentive for these agents to come in. Before it was like you were negotiating. The team owner would basically say, "This is what you're getting, and you're so lucky to be getting this. So take it or leave it." And that's like where you would get we'd pay for your travel and pay for you for somewhere to live, and that was like you're lucky to get that. And there was no negotiation, and I just didn't think that was fair. No. And the good thing is EG was one, Evil Geniuses at the time Alex was running it, was one of the most forward-thinking agencies in terms of treating their players well. And they had a very good balance sheet in that they had, very big sponsors with Intel and Monster and etc. So they ran it like a proper business, and Alex was able to compensate his talent. And that's one of the things that attracted me to EG, was it was much more financial stability.
Yeah.
For our players.
Well, but yeah, that's awesome. And I mean, like, I bet you feel like you were probably 5-6 years too early. Imagine like the amount of money you could be getting in now, right? If you just started a little bit later, or just it's just the lottery of when you're born, I guess. But just some of the salaries that League of Legends pros specifically are commanding now is insane.
It is wild, and I definitely there's there's a lot of momentum, but I don't take anything back. It's such a wild time. I don't regret anything or timing or anything like that. We had met so many cool people competing on the biggest stages, and arguably it's almost became a lot more controlled now. Like everyone was winging it. Riot was winging it. Twitch was winging it. The teams were winging it. Now there's a lot more structure and control and regulation and things like that. We were all just growing up in this space together, and that was a blast. It truly was. And it set me up for what I'm able to accomplish now, and I've had a very good career. So I don't begrudge I didn't get paid millions when I was competing, because I still got so much out of it.
Yeah. That's good, because I think now it is becoming somewhat of a money first and then everything else second kind of culture in some games. And if you look at Valorant, I think that's a very good example of that, perhaps with some of the people jumping across salaries there compared to what you're able to recoup at the moment is absolutely insane. But hey, you can't really blame the players for that too much. But I wonder. So just before we started recording this, you spoke to me a little bit about Esports PRC, which is kind of the way it sounds like is like almost like a beta or a trial run for like what you're doing now at Pipeline. So from retiring to starting that, like what was the process there?
Yeah, towards the end of my time competing, I learned so much and frankly made so many mistakes in my career. Like I signed contracts I never should have signed. I screwed up my taxes for years. My face is being sold on mouse pads and I'm getting nothing for it. 10 years later, like all this stuff. And I always got asked by because a lot of the younger pros in League especially looked up to me, and even other games looked up to me as someone who had their shit together. And frankly, I was still figuring it out, but I would say I had my shit more together than they did.
Yes.
Would look up to me and we go, oh, how did you deal with this? Or what should I do here? And I felt like I really wanted to help. Like I felt like an obligation or a duty that I got so much out of the industry. How can I help? And that's what the Esports PRC was. It was the Esports Player Resource Center. That's what it was. And it was essentially, if you're looking for a lawyer, first of all, we'd educate you on why the hell you need a lawyer.
We still need that now, to be honest with you, mate.
Exactly. Someone should still go build this. We basically just wanted to create an educational resource, whereas new players, it doesn't matter in what game you were, it didn't matter at what stage you were and how much money was in it. How could we create something where you would understand what you need to know and consider, and from people that have done it, so you respect it? Because a lot of young pros just don't respect people that aren't pros.
Mm-hmm.
So how could you get from people that you respect and you know why you need a lawyer, and then point you in the right direction? So if you need to get a lawyer, like why branding's important, like why you should care, because most young pros don't care.
Yeah.
And try and give that advice from people that they would respect. One of the things that came out of the Esports PRC was we actually reviewed player contracts. So we actually, between myself and a good friend of mine, Bryce Blum, who's like one of the most successful lawyers in esports, he reviewed the current player contracts the teams were sending around, and they were extremely varying and complicated. And we compared that to sports and entertainment. And we actually created a standard player contract for esports, which has evolved a lot since we first started drafting it back in 2016, but it's now in use by thousands of players around the world. So it's one of the things I'm really proud of, is that we try to make a real difference in supporting the genuine players. The Esports PRC is great, and I wish that someone will go build it and go do it. The challenge we had, I was naive. It was the first kind of thing I went to go try build outside of my pro career. And it was a philanthropic endeavor. So we had a bunch of people that were really excited about it, but it was like their 5% project.
Mm-hmm.
And that just wasn't enough to make this successful. I do think there's a huge need for it, and it would add a lot of value. It just has to be someone's sole focus and has to be financially viable as a business.
And that's the hard part, right? Justifying the cost of certain services when people think they're doing just fine. It's like you need to be able to present the problem and then say, "Oh, we've got the solution," and that's obviously.
And I was just so naive. At that point, I was like, I just want to solve the problem.
Mm-hmm.
I don't care. I just want to fix. This is a problem I know exists, and I want to fix it.
Yeah.
And I was just so naive about what it took to make that happen.
Mm-hmm. Which is strange, considering, like, as you say, you knew the power of like branding and positioning yourself properly and the business side of stuff when you were playing. So like when you were playing, you understood like the need to market yourself, and then when it came to building your first kind of,
but it's like having a team and like employees and like having them all motivated to do it in a timely fashion, and like let's ship things and be organized and all of that. I just didn't have the experience yet, and that was one of the big lessons that I carried in the pipeline, was like, there's got to be a lot more sustainability in terms of the business that we're building, but also this has to be people's job if it's going to be as big as we want it to be and as successful as we want it to be.
So it sounds like you were taking the lessons learned from the mistakes you'd made, as you said, like with like the mouse pads and image rights and everything there, and just signing contracts and maybe not getting on top of the taxes, or like systemizing things in the right way to optimize the amount of money you can earn and such. It seems like instead of just being pissed off that you'd made mistakes, it was like, okay, well, I can help people avoid that themselves going forward, which is obviously a very selfless thing to do. And even so, like it not being well monetized and stuff at the time, and as you say, not necessarily viable, just shows how selfless that was. And I think that kind of is still evident in what you're doing now and what you're building at Pipeline.
Yeah, no, and to be fair, like I got so much out of gaming, like so much out of the esports industry. I was a small town kid in Scotland. I'd barely traveled. I see the world. Like my eyes opened up. I met some of the coolest people and had some crazy experiences all over the world. And like that, to me, there's got to be some element of, or want to pay back some of that. My life changed substantially. And I had to do my part. And it actually parlayed interestingly into Facebook.
Yes.
Which my whole rationale for joining Facebook at the time, great opportunity, great company, etc. Like obviously they're, one of the biggest tech companies in the world, but I wasn't sure if I wanted to join.
Okay.
Because it was a really large company, and I had a lot of autonomy for 5-6 years, and I wasn't sure if I was just going to become another corporate person. Does that make sense? And I just wasn't totally sure. And I got a job offer from Riot as well after my pro playing career, and I turned that down, which was a very hard decision because it was a really cool opportunity. It was essentially being like one of the talent faces of League of Legends, and I turned it down. It was a hard decision, and my whole belief was I've accomplished a lot as talent, but I really want to shape the industry from behind the scenes and make an impact on it. And that's what led me to going down. I first worked at a startup for a year before Facebook approached me and said, hey, we would love you to run our esports division. And I joined Facebook back in 2016 and moved to San Francisco. And my whole mantra was like, how can I make one of the biggest companies in the world give a shit about games? Because frankly, they didn't. And again, in that whole ethos, selfishly, I was getting a lot of it. I was getting paid well. I was getting to work with really cool people and learn.
There's some status there, I'm sure, as well.
And there totally is. Yeah, there's a status of working Facebook. But I just wanted them to give a shit about games because they'd given me so much. And they didn't.
No.
And that was more of my driving fire. And it was interesting because I got there, and within about 3 months, I was like, I don't think esports should be our sole focus.
No. I don't think esports should be the sole focus of like absolutely anyone at the moment, to be honest with you. Like, well, it depends if you want to make a decent profit and have the most amount of impact, like whether you're a publication like ESPN or whether you're Facebook or something, right? I mean, the opportunities in gaming more so than esports is.
And that's one of the things that I identified even throughout my pro career. This is a $500 billion market cap company, Facebook. And for them to give a shit about games, which is what I wanted, it had to be bigger than esports.
Yeah.
So that led me to taking over gaming video strategy, and that included live and VOD at Facebook, which was an incredible opportunity. Our team was like 3 people when I joined in 2016. And I essentially had to make a case for why we should invest in gaming. And I pitched that I got the opportunity to pitch to Zuck and the rest of the management team at Facebook. And it was a really cool opportunity to do that. And then our team grew from like 3 people to over 100. We got, a 10-figure content acquisition budget. Incredible opportunity to impact the industry in a meaningful way. And frankly, Facebook is still working on being cool. It's not cool.
Yes. Yes.
But it's making a difference now, and it's made a meaningful dent on the industry. It made Mixer wake up. They're gone now, but it made Twitch wake up. It made YouTube wake up that Facebook was at ring. And when I think about having an impact on the space, like I'm so proud of the work that we did there. There's still an incredible team that is working on gaming at Facebook, and there's thousands of creators that are now building a business on Facebook. So super stoked and proud of the work we did there. And I learned so much, especially about scale. Facebook has 2 billion people on it every single month. And like, when you think about this, it's hard to appreciate the scale of that until you actually...
you can't really fathom that still now though, can you?
No.
2 billion. No.
Yeah. And it's just the scale of the efforts and things that we were able to do, and then an appreciation for how big gaming is truly. Like when you start to think about the global markets like China, Southeast Asia, Latin America, India, and when you start thinking about mobile games and the revenue there, and just, I was so hardcore PC for life, like PC Master Race, all that stuff, right? I'm like so hardcore. This opened my world up a lot, was how big the gaming opportunity is out there. And it was really a catalyst for when we started thinking about Pipeline. Was the end of my time at Facebook. I had actually convinced a guy called Stoneman64. He's my co-founder at Pipeline. His name's David. And I met him back in 2016. I convinced him to start streaming on Facebook because he was a YouTuber at the time, and he had some videos go viral on Facebook. So he's seen the potential of the platform. And I convinced him, take a bet on it. Let's try this. And he was in for it. And we essentially co-developed a lot of the products and programs together at Facebook. And we just grew our friendship, super close over the last few years. One of the things that always frustrated us, and coming back to that Esports PRC conversation earlier, was we as an industry do a pretty good job of helping the top 1%.
Yes.
And the reason for that is there's a financial incentive for us to do that. Whether we're taking a percentage of revenue or we're charging hundreds of dollars an hour, there's that financial incentive. At the very beginning, though, there's no financial incentive to help the little guy.
No.
And
you just have to grind and do it out of passion and stuff, right?
Yeah. And that quite frankly pissed me off. And I tried to solve this in a haphazard way with Esports PRC back in the day, and I learned a lot from that for the esports side. And I was like, how could we solve this on the creator side? And why have the platforms failed to do it? And speaking, I was at Facebook, the platform, or like, why has YouTube failed to do this? Why has Twitch failed to do this?
Mm-hmm.
And I realized like we can go build this solution and do it in a way that is a viable business that we can continue to build upon and grow, and offer resources and support to those that haven't started or are just starting, in a way in which the industry is typically neglected or ignored them until they bubbled up to the top. And then there's an incentive to support them.
Okay. And what do you think the solution is? What's like the core ethos or mission behind Pipeline? Like how are you addressing the problem?
Education is number one. I think the ability to learn, again, to that point, like, why do you need legal support? Why do you need to get a lawyer? Like, why do you need to do your taxes? Why is your brand important?
Mm-hmm.
Why is it important that you have a type of brand and you're not just like a generic person?
Yes.
All sorts of questions that you just don't know to ask or realize until much later. How could we get that information to you right in the early days? Choosing which platform to be on. If you've never started streaming or making content before, like, you probably ask yourself this question as well. Like, should I be making content on TikTok, or should I ignore TikTok just now and just focus on Twitter and YouTube? And like, how do you think about those questions and answer those questions? That's what we exist. We want to help you know the right questions to ask, and where possible, direct you in the right direction. Part of this is your own journey, right? Like, if you're going to resonate with certain platforms, you're going to resonate with certain schedules based on your own life, things like that. But we want to help you ask the right questions and save a lot of the trial and error that you just have to go through over years, which when many people go through that trial and error, they churn out. It gets too much. It gets too hard, and they can't push through.
Mm-hmm.
And we believe that we can help more people be successful in pushing through those early days, which are really hard and frankly really lonely, by providing the right education and then providing a kick-ass community that is there to go through it together.
Okay. Yeah, I there are a lot of questions. It's like, should I play the games I want to play, or do I hop on Among Us, and then do I hop on Rust, and then do I hop on blah 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 blah? Like, because you can either kind of chase whatever's trending at that time, but then on the flip side, you can do whatever works for you, and that's probably going to be more sustainable early on, like doing something you enjoy. And then it's like, do I need to be on all the platforms, or should I focus on one? Like, and I don't think there is a one size fits all, but I think there are solutions of that.
There is. I mean, like the reality is,
you can advise. Like,
it's so tempting to watch Shroud or watch whoever and go, "Oh, I got to do all of that to be successful."
Yeah,
and that's BS. There's no way
you can
he's
probably got a team behind him helping with the clips.
He has 10 people behind him making that happen.
There you go. You just don't see any of it,
and you don't, and people don't have the experience of knowing what's going into making something like that.
Mm-hmm.
And I think having seen that side and being at the top, and I've been kind of 360 around the business, and so is David, my co-founder, because he has a team. He's full-time making content right now. We have that purview. So it's how can we share the knowledge that we have and make it easier? And to your point, tell you what not to think about. When you're starting out, you don't need merch. Like, what's the point of making merch in the beginning? Like, the thing, like the idea that you're, to your point, you made this before we got on the call, was last year you wrote 1,000 articles with like almost without having an expectation, right?
Yeah, I wouldn't get paid anything. I just churning them out. Yeah,
but that's part of the process, right? Because it's like you could have obsessed over every single one of those articles about, okay, how do I make sure this article's good? How do I make sure this article gets clicked on? How do I like drive this growth? No, it was just about putting in the time and actually getting those out there and getting, let's call it like reps, like getting those reps in. Whereas people can obsess about in the very beginning, like in their first few videos, they're like, the title's got to be right. The camera angle's got to be right. I got to make sure that like the lighting's perfect. And I got to make sure that like the captions are, and then you end up spending so much time on the wrong stuff in the beginning. And in like content creation, people can go spend thousands of dollars on gear. They can go buy key lights, DSLR cameras, 5 monitors and like all this stuff. And then 30 days later, they go, actually, I really don't like this. This is too hard.
Yeah, it doesn't, and none of that stuff actually really helps. And I mean, I, as you say, so I, like the way this series right here started was I was thinking how I didn't really know much about Jake Lucky but he's a very interesting guy. Like his growth over the past 12, 18 months or something. So I was like, hi mate, would you be interested in a chat for an hour, record it, whatever, put it up. And I recorded it in Zoom, and I had a £20 mic from Amazon and a Logitech C920, which I got before work from home became a thing. So fortunately I could actually get one for like 25, 30 quid or something. Recording on one laptop, I don't have extra screens and stuff. Didn't slap a overlay on it. Didn't know it was a series, any of that kind of stuff. I just put it out there, and it did better than when a year prior I tried doing the Adam Fitch podcast, and I had everything kind of figured out beforehand in my head. And I think the pursuit of perfection almost like puts you off, because if you just keep trying to make things absolutely perfect, one, you don't know what the actual standard is. You don't know what optimum performance is for you yet if you haven't done anything. And two, you'll never actually reach a point where you're super satisfied with everything and you're like, okay, this is it. It's never going to get any better from here. And you'll keep iterating to the point where you grow sour on what you were working on. So it might be like, oh, well, this series isn't actually good anyway. And you start questioning yourself and you don't even get started. Whereas if you just did it with a crappy background, or like the camera's not great, but it's fine, it does the job. Like audio is more important anyway, based on what I know when it comes to videos. But if you just went through and instead of a month of obsessing and putting nothing out, did like 2 episodes of a series a week or something like that, that's 8 episodes out there, and you can learn and tweak little bits after that. And then also you have the data, you can see how things
you got a feedback loop. That's the thing I always tell my team about, is like feedback loops are so important when you're building in the dark. And a lot of startups, I think, get this wrong too, especially venture-backed startups, like, when they raise like a ton of money and they're just like behind the scenes building, and like it's a year's gone by, and then they go, I've got this thing, everyone check it out, and then no one cares.
Yeah.
I mean, that was one of the things, like we shipped Pipeline really quick and got a lot of feedback, and I would have loved to have had an incredible designer. I would have loved to have had an engineer like build all these fancy features, and I just couldn't. One, I couldn't afford it at the time. I had to like prove this out first, and two, it's really, really important that you get that feedback loop as early as possible, because then you can start building the right things. And that's why I think we tried a little bit, is like building in public 100%. Is scary. There's a vulnerability in that and a humility in that, and you're like, you're thinking like, I was my competitor thinking blah blah blah, like, but it is one of the best ways to build.
I agree. Like I'm trying to grow an audience right now, and so like yesterday I shared like my Twitter analytics basically for the first month of me actually putting an effort in to like schedule tweets and think about what I'm tweeting and make sure I provide value. And there was like a percentage increase on like profile visits, like 180% or something. It's just like, oh, I can bang these out, and sure, the smaller numbers than what like probably 50% of the esports community gets, like the professional, like behind the scenes business side, and the players and such. Of course, my numbers are dwarfed by them entirely, but I'm not competing against anyone anyway. If I am, I'm competing against what I did the month prior. And I was focused on making sure the tweets were good, as opposed to making sure the numbers were going up. And I think there's probably something there in content as well. Like if
Quality,
you're, if you focus on like, okay, if you set a goal, I need to get to 10,000 subscribers next year or something like that, like you're going to be working out how to chase subscribers instead of thinking, okay, how do I make the content as appealing as it could be, or how do I optimize for the people that are already with me, because word of mouth is so powerful. If they're enjoying it and sharing it, that'll probably help you grow. I think people a lot of times, in my opinion, focus on the wrong thing. Like if you focus on the actual doing instead of like the result of the doing, you'll probably get a better result a lot of the time.
Well,
there will be some outliers.
It's about the journey.
100%.
People kind of fixate on the destination. You're totally right on that. There is some benefit to like, hard metrics and things, but you do to really enjoy the process and immerse yourself in the process of it, and be a student of the process, rather than just fixating on, I need to get to this because that will allow me to do Y. And I think a lot of people, especially in the content creation side, we find a Pipeline is it's about a lot of level setting. Because when you're brand new and you're like, I'm super gung-ho, I'm super eager to like go do this, part of our job as we see it is to like level set. Like, look, this is fucking hard. Like you have no idea how hard this is, and we're not trying to we want you to succeed, but it's hard work. And you're going to have to break this down and stop trying to do everything right at once. And the reality is you might have a 9-to-5 job, plus you've got a significant other. And I mean, do you want to keep your job and do you want to keep your significant other? Then, build something that's like can work within that schedule. Else you're going to lose everything at the end of the day. So there's a lot of recalibration, I think, when you're first starting out that you need to do. And in the building in public is actually something I want to do better at. I just haven't been as active. I don't even do like interviews like this. I interview other people now, but I don't do any building in public or talking about what we're doing as much. Frankly, we've just had a crazy busy year. Going from a bootstrap company to a 7-figure company in a year is nuts.
Well, congratulations on that. That's no small feat.
We have 13 people that I need to pay and support, and that is nuts, right? Like, it's just a lot of responsibility. I mean, they have kids, some of their parents and have kids, and they've got their health insurance through us and all that, and that's like nerve-wracking. Like, I gotta frankly, we're in a really good position, but like that's like I have those things and I think I would love to spend more time talking about what we're building and how we're building it more publicly, and I just need to prioritize that better.
Because when I think of creators, a lot of time, like when I think of like the creator economy, I just think of content creators. When creating a company is still creating in a sense, right? And there are a lot of lessons to be learned from that. And you could still, like, if you wanted to build your personal brand still, you could still do that, but it would just be in a different sense than when you were a pro player. But one thing I am interested in is kind of the biggest stumbling blocks or obstacles or unexpected occurrences, like throughout building pipeline so far that you've encountered. Now being able to look back and say you've overcome them, presuming you have. Like, I'm curious of some of those things, because I really like to have some kind of wisdom or actionable insights into things for those who watch. So was there anything you just didn't predict? Obviously, I guess you never really foresee having 13 people on staff with kids and health insurance and stuff, right?
Yeah, I think great people make a difference. The sooner you can get really good people around you, it's incredibly important. Like we're nothing without our team, and I would actually rather get good people in earlier than later. So I think that's one of like, me and Dylan obviously know a lot, but we're just 2 people, and it would like our aspirations were so high. The other thing is just start. Like we could have waited a year before releasing pipeline until it was like perfect, to your point.
We need to get the branding right and make sure we've got a 12-step course and blah, blah, blah.
Like when I went, I was like, this needs to have I did a bunch of research. Actually, I surveyed like 400 streamers before we launched, and I was asking like about price sensitivity, because one of the things I was really concerned about is like pricing. Like, what can I price this at and be, value the content that we're creating, support the business, but that people would still want to pay, especially because there'd be nothing like this before. So I did go out and we surveyed and did a lot of price sensitivity testing beforehand. But I think the reality is that you have to value your work in a certain way, and knowing how to value your work is really important. And that was one of the biggest challenges, is like, I'm from the hardcore gaming space. I don't pay for shit. And I know that that's the perception that people have, because that's me. But it's important that they do pay. And I think getting over that and like being able to value the work that you do and having a sense of value to that work is really important. And just ship it, like get it out there. Do it. And this goes for making content. It goes to building a business. It goes to whatever, like the tweet that you're holding off on because you're not sure, just do it. I think that is, a lot of people get paralyzed by it being perfect or being the right time or like whatever it is. The faster, most people won't do stuff. They just won't. Just by doing stuff, you're already way ahead of the curve.
For sure. Yeah. I don't know. Yeah, exactly that. And now so what's this? This might be like the 5th episode, if I want to call it that, or it's like the 5th interview, whatever. And I've got the new Rode mic. This is the first time recording on this, and I've got Logitech Streamcam coming and stuff like. And I spent the weekend while my better half was watching some shit on Netflix. I was like, okay, let's put this time to good use a bit. So I jazzed up my thumbnails a little bit. I'm going to see how they do for the next feed. Do you know what I mean? I just like the content's still there though. I kind of created a little system for myself. So I don't necessarily have to rely on bursts of motivation because that's obviously fleeting as all hell. Like
Yep.
you can be really motivated and do 4 episodes and then think, oh, I don't want to do this anymore. So I know the purpose behind what I'm doing. And I have a system in place somewhat, and I'm now experimenting with like different tweet formats and stuff. So I don't know if you've seen, you will do, because this will get tweeted out and you'll be tagged in it, of course. But so using like Twitter ads as such, but like not paying, but like creating the cards with the fancy videos within them and stuff, like just trying to work all that stuff out. And as good people around who are willing to help if you just ask. So like on Twitter, for example, I have a friend who does socials for one of the bigger orgs, and I messaged him and said, you got any tips on what I'm doing right now? And he was like, yeah, of course, let's jump on a call. And he just showed me through things. And I know not everyone has that kind
access,
of privilege and that access, but I think if you just ask,
you miss all the shots you don't take.
For sure. Like there's no, like, cold outreach is obviously a thing people are scared of for some reason. There's actually no real disadvantage to doing it. If anything, you may feel a bit of an ass for like 3 seconds, like when you realize
there's only upside. There's like only upside.
You might be like, oh, they didn't respond. Oh, okay. What have you actually lost? Nothing. It took you a minute to write something, you know? And so I actually try to help out the people who message me. Sometimes there's some absolute waffle and I can't reply to absolutely everything, but I know if it's like a sincere question and it's something I can easily help with, that isn't going to take up half my day or something. If it's like, oh, I need you to edit one of my articles for me, it's like, whoa, what's this?
Yeah.
But if it's just like, hi mate, I was just wondering, like, where should I publish an article first or something like that, and then I can get into it. It doesn't really matter. It's more about how you push it.
That was our whole ethos with Pipeline. Is me and Stone get asked all the time about, you know, content creation and career advice in gaming, and we love doing it. Just we couldn't scale ourselves.
Yes.
Like we had to build a platform that could do it. That exactly what we were talking about. It's scale. The other thing I would say is that people overestimate what they can accomplish in a short period of time and underestimate what they can in a longer period of time.
I've seen that in a Jack Butcher tweet. I'm sure I have, and I loved it.
Yeah, so I think like you have no idea where you're going to be in the 50th episode, right? This is the 5th. Wait till you're at the 50th, and I think don't underestimate that. When you get in those reps and you're putting out the content, you're knocking on those doors. You just have no idea where you're going to be. So don't underestimate that. Just getting the ball rolling is half the battle.
For sure, and positive momentum is a hell of a thing as well, I find. It might just take one video doing better than you expected to be like, oh shit, there maybe is something here. And maybe it's the next video that you actually were just about to put off. So like I encourage people to just keep going, you know. But so with Pipeline, is it like strictly the basics for people just starting to look out, or do you have like beginner, intermediate, like veteran status almost, like to help along the way?
It's a good question, and I think it's actually is like an insight for the audience is know who you're helping.
Yes,
their audiences. And that's part of what we focus on at Pipeline is like we really want to be the best platform if you're just starting out. Like if you have no idea where to start, we're the best platform. If you're just starting, we're the best platform. If you're a little further along, we have good content and good resources for you, but you're not our focus. Like, and I think it was hard for me because I want to do everything for everyone, but it's like a real honesty. Like we're really helping those that have no idea what they're doing in the beginning, and helping them figure it out and make sense. And I'm confident that we are the best at doing that. The larger you get, like we have things on, you know, hiring a team, thinking about growing your content on different platforms and thinking about like different revenue streams, that we have that type of content that is more sophisticated and is more important when you're larger. But that's not our sole focus.
Right.
We're really about, if you're just thinking about getting into content creation or you've just got started, you should join us.
Awesome stuff. And I encourage my viewers who are interested to actually get on that straight away. Don't even think about it. Just crack on. And in honor of time, I'm going to end it here because like I don't want to take up your whole day, and I said an hour, so we're almost at the hour mark. But I just want to thank you for coming on. I think what you're doing is incredibly important, and it's underappreciated right now or underrecognized. Maybe that's just my POV, but I think the upside for you guys is absolutely insane. So it's an honor to be able to get to speak to you and see where you are now. And of course, if you're interested in like a year's time, I would love to speak to you again and see where you're at. And you can tell me you're supporting like 130 people instead of 13. You never know where it could go to, you know. But where can people find you so they can see you build in public more when you start to do so?
First of all, thank you so much for having me on,
man.
Adam. I love your content. I love your passion and just go-getter attitude. And it's great to see another Brit kicking ass. I always love that. You can find me at Snoopy on any social platform at SNOOPEH. Or if you want to find out more about Pipeline, just go to pipeline.gg.
There we go. Thank you everyone for watching. I know I should ask people to subscribe and like and comment and stuff, but if you've got this far, then you know to do that anyway. I'm going to get
down
better.
there somewhere.
It's down there somewhere in the box or like around there. I don't know.
Just
and
do it.
There'll be all timestamps.
It helps put food on the
kind of
table.
stuff.
It helps put food on the table.
There we go. Yeah. See, I need to get better at the call to action at the end and at the beginning as well, actually. Maybe I need to take a course and get some expert advice at Pipeline. Thank you everyone for watching. Cheers.